Hey folks, Charlie in Westeros here, back again with another video in my two-part series on Rhaegar Targaryen. Though you don't need to see part 1 to understand this one, I encourage you to check it out if you are at least interested in some of the facts and theories behind Rhaegar's early life. Today, however, I will be addressing the infamous Tourney at Harrenhal and explore some of those theories that surround that momentous event in Westeros history. Why did that tourney occur? Who was the mysterious Knight of the Laughing Tree? And most importantly, why did Rhaegar crown Lyanna Stark as the Queen of Love and Beauty, only to subsequently, and allegedly, abduct her? But before I get to those questions, here are some facts behind the tourney at Harrenhal. The tourney itself was announced in the year 280 AC, roughly 20 years prior to the current events in Game of Thrones, by Lord Walter Went, the then Lord of Harrenhal. His offer of lavish prizes brought hundreds of challengers to the tourney. That said, there were some who believed that the vast wealth and splendor on display at Harrenhal was in fact supported by an alleged shadow host, possibly Rhaegar Targaryen himself. It would seem that King Aerys Targaryen only attended the tourney because Varys warned him that his son had arranged the event as a pretext to meet with a number of High Lords in order to discuss removing the king in an informal Great Council. Indeed, when the tourney itself took place in 281 AC, many were quite shocked to witness the king's state of decline. The numerous contests of the tourney lasted 7 days, and during these events a number of curious things occurred. The first of these is centered on Howland Reed, who was bullied by 3 squires before being protected by Lyanna Stark, who then beat the bullies off with a tourney sword. This event permitted Howland to meet the other members of the Stark family, including Ned Stark, during a feast to mark the start of the tournament. During the celebration, Rhaegar Targaryen apparently performed a sad yet beautiful song that made Lyanna weep. Lyanna and Howland were also able to pinpoint the mean squires as those serving 3 knights, one from House Hay, Blount, and Frey. Following these events, during the second day of the tournament, the 3 knights whose squires had attacked Howland Reed were all defeated by a mysterious knight. His armor was made up of mismatched armor bits and pieces that appeared ill-fitting on him. His shield was blazoned with the image of a white werewood with a laughing red face. The mystery knight challenged and defeated all 3 of the previously mentioned knights, winning custody over their horses and armor. None of those knights were particularly popular, so the small folk cheered for the mysterious Knight of the Laughing Tree. When the defeated trio sought to ransom back their former property, the knight declared his terms, that they ought to teach their rude squires honor. It is said his voice sounded booming through his helm, but nevertheless the trio then proceeded to chastise their squires quite sharply. The mystery knight naturally attracted unwanted attention. Robert Baratheon and Richard Lonmouth were determined to unmask him, while Aerys II was certain that the man was his enemy. By the next morning, the knight had disappeared. An angry King Aerys sent Rhaegar to search for the vanished knight, but only his shield could be found, abandoned inside a tree. Nevertheless, the tourney went on, and Rhaegar was able to defeat all the other challengers in the joust, including the likes of Sir Arthur Dayne and Barristan Selmy. Taking the Winter Rose crown for the Queen of Love and Beauty, Rhaegar revealed his interest in Lyanna Stark by passing over his own wife, Princess Elia of Dorne, and setting it in Lyanna's lap. Eddard Stark later recalled the moment as one, quote, when all the smiles died. The next year, Rhaegar seemingly kidnapped Lyanna for reasons not fully known. So naturally, and as mentioned in my intro, there are a number of questions surrounding some of the events at the Tourney of Harrenhal that need to be taken up and answered with some of the popular theories out there. Of course, I think it is always best to start these theories off with the why the tourney took place. For one thing, I think it goes without saying that the tourney was absolutely meant to be a ploy by Rhaegar to try and ensure a relatively peaceful and stable regime change from his unstable father to him. Though we are told that the Lord of Harrenhal, Walter Went, planned the tourney as a way to show off his goods, so to speak, there are some important details to consider. Walter Went's brother, Sir Oswell, was a member of the Kingsguard who was also present at the Tower of Joy years later when Ned arrived to reclaim his sister. As a result, and even though the Kingsguard is meant to solely protect the king and his interests, I think it is entirely reasonable to consider that Oswell was used by Rhaegar as a go-between to the Kingsguard member's brother, Lord Walter of Harrenhal, especially considering the tourney itself was announced shortly after Sir Oswell visited his brother. Those issues which are less clear, however, is whether Rhaegar intended for his father the king to show up at the tourney. Naturally, Aerys had, for all intents and purposes, confined himself to the Red Keep, so expecting him not to show up was entirely possible and would have absolutely allowed Rhaegar to amass the support of the major noble houses of Westeros in the king's absence. At the same time, however, the king's presence at the tourney could have been equally a potentially good option for the prince. The king's appearance had degraded horribly. His fear of blades meant he would not permit his hair to be cut or his nails to be groomed. His hair and beard were unwashed, matted and tangled, and his nails were yellow and grew 9 inches in length. His fear and paranoia of poison had made him thin and gaunt. The lords and knights at the tourney were appalled at what their monarch had become. Nor was his behavior that of a sane man, going from mirth to melancholy at a snap of the fingers. His bouts of hysterical laughter, long silences, sudden rages, and constant weeping made all present weary. In contrast, Prince Rhaegar looked every inch a leader and a warrior. Tall, clean, handsome, well-groomed, this prince was unstoppable in the lists, winning bout after bout. Surely witnessing such a contrast would have been enough to convince the lords of the realm to easily throw in their lot with Prince Rhaegar in deposing the maddened king. No matter the way you look at it, Rhaegar was in the perfect position and probably would have succeeded in his political maneuverings if it weren't for the fact that he performed one very peculiar act during the tourney. That said, I suspect that if Rhaegar had any sense of justice, he probably wouldn't have wanted to outwardly embarrass his father so publicly. But then again, if such things were on his mind, he probably wouldn't have been so eager to select Lyanna over his own wife as the queen of love and beauty. This brings me to those theories surrounding another major event at Harrenhal, and that is the presence of the Mystery Knight. It goes without saying that there were a number of suspected candidates who could easily have been the mythical Knight of the Laughing Tree, including all of the then Stark children as well as Howland Reed himself. Given these numerous theories surrounding the potential identity of the knight, I will, for the sake of time, present the candidate I believe to be the most likely one. Of course, feel free to share your own thoughts and theories on the knight in the comment section below. I think there is enough evidence to pinpoint Lyanna as the Knight of the Laughing Tree, but evidently I am far from the first person to think of this theory, so I will share a couple of well-detailed links on that theory in the info section below, but in short, the theory goes as follows. For one thing, the show introduces us to Lyanna in a very poignant manner by showing her entering Winterfell on horseback, a subtle clue to indicate her proficiency with riding. Naturally, she's also noted to have been an extremely skilled rider in the books, as well as having an interest in sword fighting. Though jousting isn't quite the same as simple horseback riding or swordplay, it is entirely possible she had the skills to joust as well. Moreover, as an underage girl, the fact that she was probably shorter than the average man aligns nicely with the fact that the Knight of the Laughing Tree was also quite small. As for her booming voice, well, it is entirely likely that she would have tried to sound like a man. Perhaps this is one point going against her, but I think that given her apparent resemblance to Arya Stark, there is something to be said here. Arya would, after all, pretend to be a boy, Ari, for a time. I think this event is, intentionally or not, a bit of a mirror to Lyanna, who seems to have been a tomboy herself. Given Arya's ability to play herself off as a boy, I think it is entirely possible that Lyanna was able to do the same at Harrenhal. Regardless, Lyanna disguising herself as the Knight of the Laughing Tree does give us something important, and that is a possible opportunity for Rhaegar and Lyanna to finally meet one-on-one. Though we are led to believe the prince allegedly never found the Knight of the Laughing Tree after his father sent him after the stranger, I think this is in fact the only real opportunity Rhaegar had of meeting the Stark Lady prior to her apparent abduction. I believe it is entirely reasonable to suppose that Rhaegar, after catching up with the mysterious knight, was pleasantly shocked to discover Lyanna beneath the mask. Impressed with her strength and courage, I think Rhaegar might not only have been smitten by Lyanna, but conceivably also believed her to be the essential carrier for his third child, since Elia would no longer be able to bear any. The dragon, as Rhaegar once said, must have 3 heads. As a result, it is also very possible that Rhaegar crowned Lyanna as the Queen of Love and Beauty for more than just her appearance and charm. Presenting Lyanna with a crown of blue winter roses was a very significant symbolic gesture, a flower which of course will subtly make a reappearance throughout A Song of Ice and Fire, as well as Game of Thrones a few times. Lyanna's abduction following the tourney is a bit less of a certain affair. We know that she was supposedly kidnapped by Rhaegar with the help of Arthur Dayne and Oswell Went about a year after the tournament. The timeline in which this took place, as well as the events between her alleged abduction and the tourney's end, is still not entirely clear. But what is relatively certain is that Rhaegar likely didn't take Lyanna against her will. The elements which seem to be less clear are the same ones that come up again throughout my video series on the matter. Was Rhaegar motivated to take Lyanna to the Tower of Joy for reasons of love and passion, or was there an underlying supernatural or prophetic reason behind his choice? Like so many things in A Song of Ice and Fire, the answer is perhaps more nuanced than expected, and my hunch is that it could very well have been a combination of the prophetic and the emotional that led Rhaegar to elope with Lyanna in the manner that he did. Considering the dramatic consequences of Rhaegar's decision, namely Robert's rebellion and the overthrow of the Targaryen dynasty, I am hopeful we will get a deeper understanding of Rhaegar's motivation in the upcoming books and seasons of Game of Thrones. Of course, I think my previous videos on Rhaegar, Summerhall, and the Tower of Joy do discuss that aspect in ample detail. For now, I will be ending this video here, which might strike some of you as faster than usual, but don't think this is the end of my theory videos on Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire, as I do have quite a few more planned for the next few months in anticipation of Season 7. For now, I would like to hear your thoughts on the tourney at Harrenhal. I realize I really only touched on events relevant to Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, and that many more eventful occurrences took place at the infamous gathering, but for the sake of this video, I try to keep things relevant to the Targaryen prince and his affair with the Stark girl. Anyway, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed, leave your comments down below if you have any, and as always, I will see you all next time.